So like it's literally as simple as this. So subroutines you won't have to change because these are only called when a rule asks you to. But anything that's like check for hero setup, remove your DPS passive, do all this blah blah blah. This happens because it's asking for the conditions of this rule to go on, and normally it's just for every player. But if you just simply change this to one team and do that for every single rule in the entire code, it applies to only one team. Just depends on which team do you want to be 66, which one do you want to be 5v5.
6 and
Does it
5.
matter?
Yeah. Do team 1 as the 5 players, 5 man.
Okay, cool. So set everything to team 2 then. That's all I got to do.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Okay.
literally it. That's all we do is set everything to team 2.
Well, we appreciate
So
you,
wait,
Toastie. That's
this
why.
player took damage.
I'm sure you saw the message though. I got you the domain 6v6.info.
Oh, wait a minute. Just almost had a boo-boo here. The DPS passive one needs to be team 1 because it's based on if you took damage, not if you received it. And
Okay.
If the 5v5 guys are taking damage, then that means the 6v6 team is shooting them, and therefore they don't apply the DPS passive. So that one's going to be team 1.
So, did you try that out though? The 6v6.info?
I did not actually. I didn't even look into it.
It's just a domain name. Cost me $4, so I was like, fuck it. We're gonna get 6v6.info, and that way.
I'm realizing how like lopsided and like the mechanics this is going to be. This is going to have to be really hard to wire your brain, I think. Oh man! So think about this. All like the 5v5 players are going to have the self-healing back too. Ugh. Makes me shiver, man.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be so much fun. I'm pretty sure.
You say so.
Maybe we can get like people that are pro 5. Imagine people that are pro 5v5.
Go shit on the 6v6 enjoyers. Wow. Okay.
No. We'll get them. We'll put them on the 5 man. Then we'll get pro 6v6 players, and then we'll pit them against. And that way there'll be like real internal rage. You know, like real competitive spirit.
Oh, does this one have fucky scenarios? Hang on. If you're a team 2 Maga, then okay, no, this works just fine. Team 2. Look at how complicated this rule is for one little action. It's just like word vomit and one rule.
Event cardiac. Remove cardiac overdrive, allied damage reduction, and set cooldown. Wait, what?
This is all of this does is so. First of all, like this sets the cooldown to what you need to be because we don't like using scalars when possible in like the actual workshops or the what's it called, the custom game settings. The scalars there are kind of inconsistent, so we prefer to do it in the workshop because that means 2 things. First of all, if we want to change something, it's usually set and not relative. So if something changes on a patch, we don't have to go back and change it later. And also, anything that's set in the normal hero settings, Echo won't abide by if she copies that hero. But she will if you have this set up properly as like in a workshop code as well. That's why all of these conditions are not if you're playing as that hero. They're set up if your variable hero is Maga. So that if Echo gets that hero, she then has that variable and then abides by that rule as well.
Oh shit. Okay, now I know what you mean. Okay. So yeah, so if Echo's copying, that's that if variable. Okay, she's directly actually playing that character. She's not playing Echo anymore, right?
This is the character. Hero. The variable is hero setup, and this is the one that lets Echo actually abide by all those rules. Properly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Which made me just realize that that's actually not. Oh no. How long has that been that way? Oh shit, that's an oversight. That's actually not working properly. Oops. Let's fix that right now. My bad. So sometimes things slip through the cracks, you know? There, now it works. Moving on. Oh, but you're not going to be ready for a 6v6 Erosa having increased fusion driver damage. That one extra per pellet, that's going to add up, man.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be something.
What kind of worries me a little bit in this experiment we're about to do is, for example, some heroes for 6v6 had to get explicitly buffed, not nerfed in some ways. Like Lifeweaver is just a better version of that character in 6v6 than he is in 5v5. So if that comes down to that, a Lifeweaver on the 6-man team is just going to get more done than the 5-man team.
Oh shit! I was gonna pass this on to you. Shit. I'm pretty sure I saw SVB talking to someone about this. But we should keep an eye on it, especially for 6v6. He apparently has the highest shield break potential of any of the supports.
Sorry, Life Weaver? We're still talking about Life Weaver, right?
Yeah, we're talking about Life Weaver.
Huh.
He, like, when you're playing him, they're talking about, like, with little tests and everything. Hey, Dostray says, Life Weaver, yes. Hey, Dostray, what's going on, dude? Yeah, like, your job is shield break. Like, that's literally because he's so good at shield break with the, with his standard DPS as a support, so.
Well, he's 20% better at that in this patch. So.
Yeah, that's where I want to be like, I'm going to be like, I don't know if he actually needs that in 6v6, but we'll see how shields and stuff work out. Because as soon as I heard that, I was like, wait a minute, in 6v6, he might have value where nobody's using him right now, you know? So.
Oh, wow. Some of these rules are kind of pretty involved. So these heal passive backups are like super interesting. So for example, the solution we have to disable your self-healing right now is just to simply damage you whenever you're about to receive it.
Yeah.
But of course, there are some instances where you can't take damage. If you're bubbled by Zarya, if you're in Wraith form, if you're in Cryo Freeze, if you're doing all sorts of things like that. And so Lemonhead came up with this incredible solution, which is, it's not perfect. That's why you can see some of these rules say up to this amount of bugged healing. But what it does is if you're in the state that causes you to be invulnerable by one of these abilities, it'll check for that. And also, it will enact what's called the heal passive backup, which will multiply all of the healing that you receive by a crazy amount, like 10,000. But also it sets your healing dealt to a tiny, tiny amount. So the healing dealt, air quotes, by the passive can't be tracked, which is why we have to do it this backwards way anyway. And therefore, if you're receiving it, it's not being tracked, and that's not going to get buffed by your crazy heal passive amount. But any other healing you get from your own abilities, from your teammates, whatever, is being multiplied by 10,000. So it's back to where it should be. All this jumping through hoops just to make these abilities that normally you can't be damaged in also not give you excess self-healing when they are applied.
Excess self, okay.
What an interesting solution he came up with that.
That's such like isn't that such a like a niche or like a very small or
it's extremely niche problem, but also
like,
kind of a like I can see why he would want to go ahead and make that a problem.
Yeah, I understand.
As if he had a solution in mind, like go for it, buddy. You rock, I guess. Another thing he came up with was, what else was it? There was something I was about to say, but I'm already forgetting what it was. Well, I guess it wasn't important. Shit, where am I? Going down the entire rule, and now it's scrolling me for some reason every time I click on this, which is just super annoying.
I'm gonna ask you a dumb question.
Yeah.
Because I already ask a lot of dumb questions, so it's fine. So what's the advantage of using the subroutines instead of, obviously it's just general server load, but what's the like?
If multiple rules need to call it, so for example, if every single hero needs to have their health reset, their stats reset, their statuses reset, all of these things need to happen when initialized, and instead of just giving you a list of like 40 actions in every single hero's initialization, these are just ways of condensing those lists. In theory, it is identically the exact same, but also it just means that if you, for example, need to change one of these, instead of having to go down the entire list of all the heroes that change it, you can just go to the subroutine and change it that way. So, for example, if Blizzard in the future says, we're going to increase the tank passive to 50% knockback reduction, not saying they do that, but if they do, we just have to go up to the rule that says remove tank passive, wherever that is, and change this knockback received value right there. And it works.
So you're filtering everybody basically to a set function first, right? As opposed to
pretty much
individual functions for every single hero. Okay. All right, that makes sense.
It also means that if like I, in the future, decide that I want to change that balance myself, then also I could do it just like that.
Yeah. I figured out how to change it around, but I just wasn't sure what the direct advantage was there.
The one rule, the two rules in the entire script that use single player variables.
Bonus
Echo
ultimate
is spaghetti
charge while
code.
duplicate.
So you can't actually set the amount of the rate at which you gain ultimate charge individually for any hero. You can just set the cost of every ultimate globally in the hero settings. But that
Oh,
again
yeah,
doesn't interact with Echo at all. So what this script does is it just sets your ultimate charge to 20% when you enter duplicate. So your bonus ultimate that you're copying is set 20% immediately, and whenever you use the ultimate, it gives you 20% again. So functionally, it reduces the ultimate cost, but also it's not gonna. It's kind of deceptive because you think you're like, "Ooh, I'm 50% to my ult," but in reality, you're like a third to your ult if you're
Yeah,
copying.
yeah.
That's
Okay,
that's
okay.
that's kind of like nothing we can do about that. It's the best solution we've got. Oh, dude, look at all the duplicate rules. Getting duplicate working properly is actually just the workshop creator's pain. Every single thing needs to be thought about because
I
again,
can't.
it just
I,
does not behave or play nice with the regular workshop settings or the regular hero settings, I should say.
I think the developers had a lot of problems with it anyway. You can't like switch when you're in spawn and everything too, while someone else is
I
duplicating you.
know.
It's the most fucking irritating. I
What is
hate
up
it.
with that?
Yeah,
I hate that.
yeah.
Makes me want to tear my hair out when I'm like, man, I really just want to swap heroes. I got shit on, but also I can't because my freaking hero's being copied. I also just realized that
The poor
it did not occur to me until literally just now that every hero in 5v5 has extra health in season 9.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know why I didn't think about that. That's not what my brain went to when I said 5v6 patch, let's go. No, it was all the other changes, nothing to do with the freaking extra health. Is that going to matter that much though? I don't know.
That
That could matter a lot.
It does matter a ton. The health changes are huge.
But also, some of the heroes in this code also just have extra damage applied to them as well. Genji, Reaper, Soldier, Tracer.
Well,
Like, Tracer's damage is reduced. Wait a minute. Oh, yeah, that's reduced. Never mind. You're not going to feel that in the Widow v. Widow mirror. That's for damn sure, though.
Wait, was Tracer's pulse bomb? I can't even remember the patch. I'll probably should bring it up. Was Tracer's pulse bomb pulled back to what it was in Overwatch 1, or is it still default?
I think this is still 350 damage.
It was 300. I think it's 300 right now.
When was it ever 300? What?
They nerfed the fuck out of it. Yeah, because yeah, because it used to be a tank buster.
It used to be 400 at one point, and then
it was 400. Let me take a look. Let me just see here.
I'm looking at it right now. It says 350 damage for the explosion.
Is it 350 right now? Oh, okay.
Yes.
I don't know where I had my head that was 300 right now.
350 pulse bomb damage. Yikers.
Is it? Oh yeah, it's 350. Okay, well, can you bring it back to 400, please?
No.
Please.
No, the 400 pulse bomb is completely ridiculous.
Nice.
Actually, the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. No way are we going back to that.
I love that.
It would just completely farm tanks for no good reason. Yeah. Like, it's so easy to stick on them, and there was just like no answers to deal with it. You would just blow up and just bye-bye.
Yeah, but there's immortality in Suzu now. Come on. No, yeah, that's fine. It just felt so good.
There it is.
Increased Thrawn volley.
20%. Thrawn? Who said Thrawn around here? Thorn volley.
Yeah.
That is a 20% increase in damage. Yikers, man. Big yikes.
I'm honestly not so sure about that one, Matt. Like, I'm really...
It's fun.
See...
I don't know how to say that. It's really fun.
It is, but yeah, he's... I don't know. I have to take a look at the numbers. One of the big things that I'm worried with Lifeweaver, though, is he's a subtle kind of carry. Like, when the enemy team doesn't have a Lifeweaver, they have so fucking hard time getting through chokes and everything. But oh, there we go. 5v6 or 5v5 versus 5. No, it's 5v6. Yeah,
5v6. All right.
5v.
There we go. That should be ready to go, but we can test it here in a second. I'm also going to go back on this to fix the two things that we saw real quick.
Oh, beautiful.
Thrawn volley. I'm gonna vomit. And then where was the bogger rule? Right here. Check it. Now, you did say you still think tanks are a little too strong in some cases. Now, I would be interested in hearing more about what you would consider to be strong about them, and we can consider nerfs to them if that seems fair. But I don't want tank to just be an instantly worthless role. Like nobody liked playing tank in Overwatch 1 because it just felt like a worthless role. And that's why we got to the point where 5v5 felt appealing to begin with.
So, my thoughts are that tanks in general could probably have like 20% less health, and that may feel terrible for like I don't even know if I would like argue for it with the feel of the game that we're trying to put together, as much as like there's so much face tanking going on that that they're more, and there's so much more utility at the moment for a lot of these tanks. Like, for example, Ryan's charge, right? Being able to stop his charge partway through takes away so much of his weaknesses that that they're even more powerful right now than they are at the end of Overwatch 1. That is what I feel like. They're like maybe like 10-20% a little bit more powerful. I would scale back, like personally I'd scale it back to the point where it's uncomfortable for most of the tank players, where they do have to work around cooldowns, because cooldowns to me should be the focus of tanks, right? But like even we've done 2 weeks of like kind of open queue style stuff, right, where we did one with goats pretty much, and they, yeah, I don't know, the specifics I'd have to put a little bit
forward. That's interesting. It's not where I thought this conversation would go, but I guess it's worth a shot.
I would consider that more of an experimental thing that we could play around with than it is one that you'd put in the actual public patch that we have, right?
Yeah.
Especially too, we don't see it, but also like there may be people that are playing this code that we just don't see, right? Because I was that person, I'd go find codes and use them for and like the developers would never know that we hosted games doing it, right? So I would keep it towards the feel right now, just for the public viewing stuff. I'd keep it more in towards the feel of what you have right now. But in terms of balance, if we were really focusing it, yeah, like reduced health, but more focus on the cooldowns, and kind of like in the same way that back in Overwatch 1, remember when they reduced like shields? Like Ryan went from 2,000 to like 1,600 shields.
Yes.
And
yes, I do remember that.
Everyone's like, "Oh, we're dying instantly. We're getting fucked," right? But that didn't really happen. Everyone got used to it really quickly, and then shields also and tanks were still a problem. So, yeah, I'd have to put more thought into it. You put me on the spot here in terms of like thinking about balance and everything like that. But yeah, that's just my initial thoughts. Is if you took the health and like if everybody was like 100 less health, it would actually feel more balanced.
So here I'm 250 HP, by the way. It looks like it's working just like I thought it would. But I want to test to see if like the DPS pass is working as intended. So what's a good character that has like a nice instant burst heal option?
Let me Ana.
Go pick Ana or something. Should be like 60 healing normally, right?
I can't remember. Yeah, here.
So I'm gonna go ahead.
Yeah.
Ooh, it looks like that is working, I think. I can't
Here,
tell.
one sec. Let me get the exact numbers here. I kind of shoot.
You don't have self-healing, so
yeah.
You should. It's 100 for 66 mode, so.
So I'm at 96.
Well,
I go up
the DPS passive ran out by that point.
Well, you just shot me,
do
right?
it pretty quick. Well, 2 seconds. Remember, you only have 2 seconds to heal to check that.
Is it 2 seconds?
So,
oh, okay.
It's 2 seconds. 2 second passive.
No, that was faster than 2 seconds. Okay, whatever. We'll try it again here. Try it again. Just shoot me down quick.
Do it pretty much immediately.
Okay, there.
As soon as I stop shooting.
48 to to 122. Yeah.
You definitely have the DPS debuff applied.
Yeah, that works. Hey, let's and I imagine it wouldn't work the other way too. Here, I'll go Sombra and run my way over here.
In my world,
Oh yeah, I guess so. Try that out. And mine's only going to heal for 60, of course, because I'm stinky season 9 patch. Alrighty, let's give this a shot. Go back to Ana.
Did I scare you?
Yeah, I just got 60 healing from that. There you go. You do not have the DPS passive, and I do. Ha ha! How does it feel? Also, the fact that I'm... Oh, God, how does this hero have 750 health? That's just
Oh
not
my
real,
god.
dude.
Yeah, 7. Wait. Let me just double check. I'm gonna check health pools. It's probably safe. I just want to make sure.
Maga has 750 on live! 750! How is Overwatch
And
gotten
wait.
to this point?
I know. It's crazy. Here, 1 second. Let's just quickly. I want to see the self heal passive just to double check it.
Oh, I got it. I promise you,
So
I
you got it. I shoot you. You shoot me a little bit.
Oh, shit. Here, hang on. Have some pineapple pizza first. There we go. Very nice, nice. Wait 5 seconds. Yep, I'm healing. I got that
Alright.
healing.
Shoot me a little bit here. All right. And. Oh,
Wait,
I'm
Sombra's the only
Sombra.
hero that has
I'm I'm not healing. What?
You're not? Oh, did we figure that out too? Oh my god, we're so good at this.
It's
we are
very slow.
so back, boys.
It's healing, but it's very slow. It's
Because
like
you have the backup enabled. You're getting a 1/10,000th of it.
yeah. I'm barely going up here. Let me just get something fast. And I'll come on.
Oh, we are
Tracer.
so back. Holy crap! I'm
Here, yeah,
so
give me a
impressed
shot.
with how well this code works.
Okay. And nothing.
Okay, looks like this is already ready to go. If you want to run that,
We could ping out right now.
5v6 is ready to go.
Or do we
Wouldn't do
save
bad.
it? I think we'll save it for Sunday,
Yeah, for sure.
and then get
It's
a whole
definitely
bunch
the
in.
sort of thing you would want to run on your scraps, like you said. You know, it's a
Yeah.
new thing.
It's an excellent experiment. Like, yeah, it's a lot of it's I'm so happy right now. You have no idea. Like, this is gonna be a blast. This is gonna be so fun. Oh,
Oh man,
like
I really don't know how this is gonna go either. I feel like it literally could go either anyway. What I assume is gonna happen though is like the damage players on the 6v6 team are just gonna not have a good time at all. They're gonna be going up against damage people that they have to duel that have more health, but also they're constantly getting slammed with the DPS passive. Like that's just not gonna be fun for them. But who cares, right? That's part of the experiment.
and tanks with disgusting amounts of health. They're just gonna be like, can you imagine?
I
Oh
feel
my
like okay,
God.
on the opposite side, I feel like the 5-person tank, the 5 team, is gonna have their tank get floored every fight. Like that man is never going to have fun in their
Maybe,
life.
I guess so.
Like you're gonna have 2 potentially hard counters just
But-
running it down on you constantly.
But here's
It's
the
not
thing.
gonna be-
There's no DPS passive against him, so all healing is full healing, right? So if you got
remember that every like damage hero in 6v6 code is also like slightly doing more damage. If you think about it, like Reaper is going to do more, so is Genji, so is Soldier, so is
let's
a
just
lot
not
of
tell-
heroes. Like Torbjorn's going to be insane, I guarantee you that. Like that tank player, man, you are going to have to get conscripted and signed to warfare and just consent to that because you are not going to have fun playing tank in this.
Yeah, I guess so. That would be.
I do not volunteer, by the way. I want to make that very clear. I don't want to do it. And if anything comes down to it, I am not going to be the solo tank player on that team. Let anyone else do it. I don't care as long as it's not me.
I don't mind doing it. If nobody wants to be that, I have no problem, getting fucked around. Like it's not. I have fun no matter what. So it'll be a blast. Like it'll
Oh
be.
god, Ben just said in your chat, I see it. I think our experiment of no limits in 6v6 was perfect and should be the new mode. So that's a hard veto from me, man. I really like 2-2-2 roll lock. I don't know what it is. That's my favorite format. I like being able to queue up in any game of Overwatch and just have some sense of actuality to the map. Like no matter what teammates I get, no matter what anybody likes to play, we are at least forced to be a competent composition. Sort of. Sort of.
I want to bounce this off you then, because I think Overwatch was the best when 2-2-2 was the best choice, but not locked to it.
That's problematic though, because I get what you're saying, and I know what time of like Overwatch that was, but at the same time, 2-2-2 is the best choice on that context, unless you're like actually min-maxing the game, in which case it's usually what was it like hard dive with like quad tank Moira's Lucio or goats, God forbid, when that came out. Like, but every single time that it was you were having fun in like gold plat, because that's where I was too at the time as well. Like I was having so much fun playing my 2-2-2 comps. Reinhardt Zarya, it's a dream come true, but if I need to, I can flex to help my team out. Meanwhile, everybody at like Grandmaster Elo is stuck playing like the same 2 comps every game, or they just lose because it's just so refined up there.
Yeah,
do not get it twisted. Launch Moira was so broken that you had to basically just run multiple tanks and run it down. Otherwise, you just lost. Now that's when Moira did like 82 healing per second with like 50% more resource than she had then, than she has now. It was crazy how much that hero did, and that would build Colossans in like 30 seconds, and that was all you did every game. like the utopia I feel is that you could do open queue, but 2-2-2 is the min max, but the balance of the game is so like finicky that if it went one way or another, it would the 2-2-2 is just destroyed. And like that's where I'm like, yeah, like because I didn't mind playing one tank with 4 DPS and a support until I needed that extra tank and nobody would switch for me, and I'm like, what the fuck, guys? You know what I mean? Like I could find a lot more enjoyment in like a format that sort of bridges the gap. Maybe if you don't like the rigidness of 2-2-2, you could do something a little bit, more interesting. Where think about how Mystery Heroes forces you to not have more than 3 of the same role in your team when you respawn. Something like that, where you have to have at least 1 tank, at least 1 damage, at least 1 support. And if that criteria is met, you go ham. Do whatever you want. At that point, I can feel more happy with that. Because at least, if for example, if I load into a game and I've got an entire team of DPS players that just want to play their own game and play their DPS, at the very least, someone's going to have to go tank, and someone's going to have to play support to help them out. At the least. We don't get those games of 5 DPS and the one dude trying to hold the team together, playing whatever he feels like might win, and just rolling face into the enemy team that's actually coordinated and has a decent comp. At the very least, there's some semblance of an actual team going on if you have those restrictions. There has to be at least some restrictions, because there are way too many playstyles in Overwatch to justify allowing people to do whatever they want.
Yeah,
And then Ben says, then you get levers and they don't get DPS. Fucking cry about it. We already have like so many lever penalties anyway. Like that's not going to be as big of an issue as you think it is.
And look, yeah, we've gotten rid of all the real DPS players anyways. They're all playing games like Valorant and fucking Apex Legends and Fortnite now. So those guys are gone. Don't get it twisted.
Anybody that only wants to just pick the DPS hero and shoot things, those guys aren't playing Overwatch anymore. No, they're long gone. They're on every other game ever. That's not what Overwatch is about anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's rough. But yeah, it's still fun. But like that's where too that's where I think like the 1 second, let me get my words together. So Ben doesn't play like that much competitive. He still plays a little bit, but he's not like super high up. So Ben, when you open up the game so that anybody can play anything, what makes it so fun is everybody just trying to figure out what the most optimal thing is. The problem is over time, once everybody knows what that optimal thing is, then you start to get like really stale tank stacking. That's always health stacking is like health and immortality stacking is like the worst thing in Overwatch. And that's like one of the reasons why they swapped over from 6v6 to 5v5 is like tanks in many instances were looking too powerful. Now, I don't believe that was the issue, but that's where Blizzard went with it, where they're like, yeah, we just can't have two... like, you have the physical tanks, and then you have the shields. And actually, I'll point this out, Toastie, this is where, like, double shields and shit like that, I think, like, if they reduce the tank health, it would help. Because the problem is once you broke the shields, everything inside that little squishy center wasn't actually squishy. It was immortal. It was the massive amount of health, and it was the immortality field, right? So like the having a hard external part is really nice, so you can have shields that cover the outside, but once you break that kind of outside, the inside being super powerful doesn't make any sense. You should trade off sustainability for survivability once that sustainability is gone.
I wish that were the case in most games, but remember that if we want to talk specifically double shield, holy crap, what a massive problem that was. I wish double shield would have never existed, and if you had any human being piloting Overwatch 1 at the time, you would have never saw that. You would have never run into that problem. You would have saw it coming from a mile away, and you would have never had that meta to exist. But that was like basically Overwatch 1 devs getting completely blindsided by shitty decision after shitty decision after shitty decision, and then also being too busy with Overwatch 2 to actually rectify it. Because remember that leading up to Batiste's launch, which sent Double Shield into like the comet-sized freaking amazing team comp that it was Batiste that did that, by the way. They kept buffing Orisa over and over again because, well, something's got to counter Goats, right? Maybe Orisa can. If you pull the whole team together and then Junkrat blows them up, Goats comp sucks, right? Like, that was their thinking at the time. Like, surely we could balance around this. So Orisa keeps getting slowly buffed over time, more and more every patch. And eventually she just becomes this, like, giga tank who sits in the corner and never dies, and that's all she does. A, no one wants to play like that because that's boring. And B, it turns out when you put a tank that sits in the corner and never dies with the tank that sits in the corner and also never dies, guess what happens?
Yeah. And
you get two tanks that never let the enemy team shoot them, that if your barriers get broken, both have defensive cooldowns on top of that, and have range damage to make them fight at a distance. Obviously that was going to happen, right?
You know what's crazy? And this is, you can cringe at this as my OG Symmetra days. One of the options, or one of the things that made double shield so powerful, was they removed the options that penetrate shields and penetrate deep. So like there was an old design with Overwatch where if something moves slow and it was hard to if it was slow, it would be large and it would be almost impossible to stop. So for example, Reinhardt's Fire Strike, right? It would go through shields. So when you, like, in comparison to something that has like really fast high burst damage, that's going to be a very surface level kind of it's going to have very surface level impact. What they should have done is, I think they should have leaned a little bit more into that kind of stuff, because I think like there's a lot of options in terms of gameplay. Like, just, I'm going to hit you with Toastie with things that bugs me, and I'm curious your ideas on this too. Like, imagine if they had the character that flipped the team on which the shield, or flip the team of the shield, right? So you
just like completely assimilate a deployable onto your team instead.
Exactly. So, but think about the balance for
the
this.
Implications of that are weird and astounding.
Think about this, right? So if you're an Orisa and you place a permanent shield, that shield gets flipped. It stays an enemy shield until the time that you can place another one. If you're Reinhardt and your shield gets flipped, you flick it down, you flick it back up, it's your shield again, right? So inside the way that the shield was deployed, there's counterplay to something that flips the team of the shield. So like this, in a way, and this is what this is where the original Symmetra was really powerful, but they kind of nerfed it out of her or whatever. Her right click was really good when the team was stacking large characters, because it was really slow moving. They had a hard time dodging it, and you just stack damage over and over and over and over and over again. Then you place your shield generator down, and that would give your team the extra tankiness to push your way through the shielding, the extra sustain that the enemy team had. Now, I'm not gonna say it's a perfect, like, Symmetra was broken and not really a very healthy character in many ways for that, but that type of like creative counterplay to a shield, or imagine an ability that literally blows a hole in a shield, right? So you pop a hole in it, same thing.
The coding nightmare.
It would go, oh yeah, but
how do you code this?
Small independent company, right? They can't make a hole in a fucking shield, right? No, like, doesn't make any sense. They could easily
don't know how you would do that. Like, hold on, wait, let me think about that. That's a cool idea, but how would that even work?
Well, so you
What
wouldn't have
the
to,
hell?
but you wouldn't have to physically put it. You'd spawn a circle, a sphere. Put that sphere over top of wherever it hits the shield, and then attach it to the shield. And then any damage that hits that circle, that sphere, it just passes through the damage. And then you recolor the shield based on that area, right? So like the technology is there to do it. It's not, it'd be hard. It'd take a little bit of time to bug fix and everything like that. But then the same kind of counterplay would be like Reinhardt gets hit. He drops his shield, brings it back up. It's now, there's no hole in it anymore. If Orisa drops a shield, the permanent shield that really not enabled, but helped the double shield setup, and the Sigma too, they had semi-permanent shields that they place out and just sit there. They get punished for staying in one spot, right? Like that counterplay was, the possibility for that counterplay was there, but they just kind of ripped that out. They ripped the possibility out and went, fuck it, we're just gonna get rid of the shields. Which,
to be fair, I am so happy with an Orisa rework. I do not like
me
our old
too.
Orisa just sitting there in the corner and basically doing nothing. But also, she sits in the corner and basically does nothing now anyway. So it's like pick your poison, I guess.
yeah.
When you were talking about earlier with like the first
it's a
thing
hard
you
one
had
to
with like an ability that can turn a deployable.
Yeah.
So that idea actually seems kind of cool, and almost like if Sombra was reworked to her new version in 6v6. I wonder if that would be like a thing Virus would do as well. Like you just instead of throwing it at an enemy to do damage, you throw it at their deployable to quickly turn it for a few seconds.
See, I'm always the fan too. I hate reworks. I wish they would just build a new hero, right? Like, because you're literally getting rid of a hero to get a new hero in, but you're still doing all the same hero design shit that you have to. Like the only thing a rework does is saves Blizzard money from having to make a new character animation. That's all it does.
It saves a lot though, like a lot. Like no kidding, that is like the amount of resources that go into making new heroes as new content. Holy crap, that's a lot of work. If they can just like put a new ability on a character and tweak the other ones and call it a rework, that is orders of magnitude less effort than making a new character to begin with. Like maybe a 100th of the effort, actually.
Toastie, what life would we have right now if we had old Orisa and new Orisa on the field?
Straight up, I wouldn't want it, because now all of a sudden you've got two of them. Nah, I'm good actually.
Well, the thing is,
there could be something to said, right? But if they're gonna rework these heroes, why are we getting rid of the old ones? Why don't we just vault the old ones as we knew them and build new heroes as their rework? It's like you'll never see the old one in game, but like maybe someone can bring it back for an arcade game mode if you decide to do like an event for that, or you could use it in the custom lobbies or something. Why do we get rid of old heroes when we do reworks? That makes no sense.
Yeah. I just, like, there's so many. It's not necessarily like the balance for competitive, but there's so many play styles that they just like ditched. They're like, yeah, we're not gonna get creative with anything in terms of like, it's just there's so many like small exclusive ways that some heroes used to be able to work around certain things that are just gone. I don't know. That's what bugs me. It's just so many grievances.
That does bug me too. In terms of Symmetra's rework, though, that one is the one I can feel like the character didn't actually change too much. The only thing that I think was functionally that different was like your ultimate. That was the only thing that they really changed, right? If I'm remembering. Well, the old lock-on beam was just a shitty thing to go as well, I think.
There's the lock-on. This is difficult too when it comes to like, especially with Symmetra. Okay, so the biggest thing about Symmetra is you won games in ways that nobody else would see, and that's what pissed everybody off. Okay, because the traditional way of playing Overwatch is you like see the enemy there, you're grouped up, you fight, you go move the next fight, right? She pissed people off in the same way that Wrecking Ball does, where what she does in between fights matters more than the fight itself, right? So what they did is they took away that in-betweenness that Symmetra had, that you snowballed value in, and pushed it all into the fight. So the actual like direct mechanics of Symmetra didn't change much, but your order of objectives completely changed when they swapped up the way the hero worked. Like knowing where to place a teleporter, or where to place a shield gen, or even what like choke to fire on, or even whether or not your fucking beam was locked onto the wrong person, right? That was like that was like a level of, or like wrong person before the fight. I would even say how to prep it, because you have to charge your primary up, right? So all of those small decisions that nobody fucking saw, that all they just saw was a Symmetra running through the whole field and then turrets everywhere. Like, yeah, it's annoying because you have to deal with all this external shit. It's the same thing you have with ball now, where it's like, get the ball, it's like, no, just ignore him, right? Go after the rest of the team. You know, I'm not. The problem is I don't find a lot of that super healthy for the game. But you know, as you said, at least put it in somewhere else where we could have it there off on the side, so that the potential for that gameplay, the potential for us to like find answers even in that style of gameplay are there. It's just such a, I don't know. Yeah. It's a difficult one.
It's making me realize that a lot of the heroes that they've reworked over the course of Overwatch's history, especially the builder type heroes, those types of heroes they decide to rework are usually the ones that have the most potential for emergent gameplay for some reason. I've noticed that kind of pattern happening.
Well, that's
like they don't get too creative, or you might piss somebody off in the enemy team. That's not fun.
Well, that's because that was value that you wouldn't have in a traditional fight, right? Like I just got a Symmetra. I played a shit ton of it, and I know how much they changed it, right? Like that was where you pulled the emergent gameplay, was a gameplay outside of tanks smashed together, DPS smashed together, heal support heals, right? Really was like, okay, now we're gonna do a flank. Fuck, man, I remember when teleporter came from spawn. You know? And so as Symmetra, you'd have a big fight, you'd have a big fucking team fight, then you'd disappear into the enemy backline. They would all think, oh, we killed everybody, but your team would stand in spawn, and you, okay guys, 3, 2, 1, you drop your telly, and suddenly your entire team was behind them, right? Like, that's gone. Now it's like, stand in the front, right click, charge laser, throw tally up on high ground, everybody like, it's now very straightforward, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
When Symmetra first got her rework in Overwatch 1, dude, I hard grinded that shit, dude. I had so much fun playing Symmetra on her like first rework. Back whenever they didn't adjust her ultimate cost properly, you get like the wall like every fucking team fight, and I would just, man alive, that was so much fun. I actually thought that was like the most fun DPS thing I met with at the time, just because of like how much different it used to be. Symmetra was typically like this very slow-paced setup type hero that didn't have a lot of offensive capabilities, but I guess she was there on defense to be some really annoying prick most of the time. But all of a sudden, I'm like spamming out the choke as my team walks through. We take one angle, and I put a TP that is not necessarily in the back line, but it covers 2 different angles so that we can keep pinging back and forth between that teleporter. And as long as it's not in like line of sight to get shot at, all of a sudden the enemy team is dealing with exponentially more fire from way too many directions they can't really compete with. And one of 2 things happen. They either all fall over instantly, or they healed the entire map. It was super fun. Super broken in some ways, too.
Well,
I enjoyed that a lot.
That's where telebombing became a big problem, and they actually nerfed the fuck out of telebombing.
Well, like the stacking the turrets on it?
Stacking turrets and then dropping your telly.
That never worked. Not once in any game I was in, because every time by this time I was like in Diamond Masters when I'm grinding this, and every single player that I like knew or immediately just melee it. Just walk up to it and melee it. It's completely, all your cooldowns are gone for no value.
All the 3 or 4 top 500 Symmetra players did it consistently every single fight. You could one shot
much
people
better than me. I don't know how. Like, I guess you have to just be like doing as like an assassin. Like, here, I'm going to put my tools of the trade down, and bada bing, bada boom. Yep. There's an entire 190 DPS thing in your backline. It's
a combo. So you do sentry, telly, sentry, and then as the telly is going up, you start charging the right click. When the sentries go through, your right click is just enough that as you teleport through, if they all hit somebody and you hit them with the right click, you can teleport back in time, and it basically one-shots them.
Damn.
Right?
How funny.
Like,
I couldn't get anyone to work with that. I mean, people were just way too like on my ass every single time. They would just see it coming, and I was like, oh, well, this doesn't seem that worth it. Especially every time I saw it coming. Every time somebody tries to TP bomb me, I do my melee strat, and it's just like they walk up to me and they're like, hi. They're just like, there's nothing they can do because they fucking blew all their damage in my backline.
Well, the days that
It's
I
so
played a
funny.
ton was like just before that when they actually had it was the teleporter and shield generator. Actually, me and one of my buddies, we're probably the reason why they got rid of like the Torb pack and the shield gen, because we probably climbed to like 34 something at the time, like from platinum, just doing the armor packs and the shield generator.
What someone used to call that the Pantheon comp, the cheese comp, where it's just
Yeah.
HP stacking.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen the screenshot of Jonak with 425 HP?
Oh, I haven't seen that screenshot. That was us every single game, man. I'm not even joking. Like 350 health tracer was something, man.
You gotta see this. This is a funny one. I don't remember where I found this, but man, it is like all I need to remember about that era of Overwatch.
Oh, it was good. But the thing is, too, like, there was actually, it was, like you said, emergent gameplay with these characters really interesting. Because back then, on Attack with Symmetra, you'd actually play, like, the creep style gameplay. Where what you would do, your team would go in and die, but every time they push forward, you'd push yourself forward with your turrets just a little bit further into the fight. So if your team failed, they could come back and they'd be deeper into wherever you're trying to push into than before, because the enemy team couldn't force their way back into the space that you took from them. That's what I mean by like in between gameplay or in between fights. Like Symmetra like extended those fights out to a weird level that people weren't really used to, because like how do you play with a Symmetra that's slowly creeping herself forward with turrets as opposed to just running in with a Cassidy and clicking on their heads, you know? Like it's not really I don't know. It's she's one of those characters that's changed so much that I don't know really I don't know what the direction is anymore, you know. I don't really know what direction it is in general. Or did you do it in the Scrub Club? Oh, you did.
Yeah, Scrub Club general.
Oh yeah, 425. Oh yeah, I remember that very clearly. I'm not even first point on Hanamura. Okay, we would get Torb, Symmetra, and then run Tracer, and you'd run a 350 health Tracer around the whole field. And it was.
Damn, what a wild time Overwatch used to be.
Yeah. Well, it was balanced too. So the way that it was balanced is the enemy team, the attackers couldn't take the initial fight, but they would actually gain ult charge faster. They'd gain DPS ults because of more health, right? So if you played slower when you were attacking into this like high health pool setup, you would actually be able to just, it's like Roadhogs are everywhere because nobody would dodging damage. You know what I mean? But yeah, I don't know if it was healthy. Like I say, I'm kind of glad the direction they went with that kind of health pool stacking stuff, because it was pretty cheesy.
First of all, thank God Brigade Rally doesn't actually give you armor anymore. That's something we usually forget. Armor over health. Not over health. Armor. to heroes that normally had no business having armor. God, like you said, 350 HP trace in your backline. That was not usually 350 HP. That was way more than 350 HP, because armor was like really weird in Overwatch 1. That's hard to explain how it works. But regardless, there is no reason a tracer should have that much health. Ever.
Dude, it was 100. It started as 100 permanent. Remember that?
150. It was 150 armor at launch. That's why this Zenyatta has 425 in this screenshot. Look at all that armor. That's
I guess that's
armor pack from Torb, 75, and 150 from Rally.
Yeah.
God almighty, what were they thinking?
I remember watching like the original videos and being like, they were like, "Oh yeah, Brig, you can have your alt 1 fight, and if you play safe, you can have your armor even for the next fight." And I'm like, "Fuck, that's just."
Like I remember people like literally armoring up in like spawn before they even walked out, because it's like, well, they're just gonna keep it. I mean,
yeah, it's like, yeah, why even?
And this all compounds to like the actual worst case scenario with this. And we didn't even know this until Goats Meta was patched out of the game. Like when they decided to do 2-2-2. The entire time, armor was bugged for the entirety of Brigida's lifespan. And it used to compound its damage reduction on top of itself the more you had.
Yep, I remember that.
God, why? How did we get here, man? That's been like, this game has never changed in its life. It's been different to play, but it's been the same rigmarole every single patch. It's just like something just never works properly. That's just how Overwatch is, I guess.
Yeah, I'm used to it at this point. All my love is, or all the characters and stuff that I used to really love have all changed so much. It's like, yeah, okay, well, you know. Well, that's why I'm glad 2-2. I
That's
think
right.
2-2-2 is like probably the smartest basic decision they made on the game overall. Like, yeah, it really helped out. I think, even though I'm a fan of kind of opening it up a bit more, but there's not an easy way to do that, you know. So
You know what could start to make it maybe a little bit more opened up and give players a bit more of that skill expression back that we've so desperately been longing for a while now? For strictly speaking, close to a year and a half at this point. It's very simple. Why don't we allow them to have more diverse team compositions by picking two tank heroes on each match for each team? And maybe we call it 66 or something. You know?
Yeah, it's the tank combos that are like, that's where too, like, utility I think is really important. Like that's why I think pulling back the health in the tanks is kind of something I'd look at if I was flat balancing it and just focusing on the utility, because once, like, it should be the same as doing damage. With damage, generally you have a short period of time that you can do damage, and then you have to back the fuck out, right? So why not have utility where all your survival is in your utility, and then you have to, once you use that utility, you're dead, right? I don't think you should like use all your utility like Orisa does right now and still fucking survive. Like, it just doesn't. Yeah.
Usually in 6v6, she doesn't.
Oh yeah,
that's the neat part. Is she blows up without her cooldowns in 6v6.
Yeah, no doubt there at all. That's for sure.
I'm really scared about reducing any more tank HP. Like, I keep creeping it back, and maybe like the whole idea behind like the patch where I decided to reduce all of the tank damage across the board.
Nobody noticed.
A lot of tank damage across the board. That was in like this idea of trying to get them to be less like Giga Tank era. I can do maybe more damage nerfs, but that's just, at that point that feels bad. And I'm really hesitant to do health nerfs, because any tank that has less than 400 HP just feels like ass. Like, that's just no amount of cooldowns, no amount of skill expression can get you to work with like 350 health as a tank hero. Like, that's just nothing.
Have you played Counter-Strike at all? Are you Counter-Strike guy?
Never.
Okay.
I do not like Counter-Strike or Valorant, to be honest. I don't like tech shooters, actually.
Well, this maybe I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. So the way that Counter-Strike does quote unquote tanking, they don't have tanks in the game.
I think you might have mentioned this before with the smoke grenades and whatnot.
The smoke grenades, they have what's called the entry fragger, right? And the entry frag, most people are just as squishy. You die 1, 2, 3 shots, right? Doesn't matter really what the gun is. But because there's economy with the game, sometimes early on, when people don't have much money, you'll have somebody who will buy armor, right? And armor just gives you like 1 extra bullet resistance. That's literally for most guns. You just take 1 more bullet. But that person is still the tank. So if you have a hallway and you have 5 players running down that hallway, you always send the person with the armor first, or the helmet, armor and helmet, right? And the way that, like, the problem I have with like Overwatch players in many ways, is you'll still give them that level of like minuscule power increase or minuscule survivability, but I think they overestimate how much impact, I think they underestimate how much impact even just a slight advantage has. Because in Counter-Strike, when you run out with 5 people die almost instantly, and there's no way to sustain that. But if you're calculated and you're smart with your positioning and you move in a safe way and you target focus properly, that's a big thing, is target focusing. You can have that entry fragger also push out with more utility, right? So it enables this kind of like snowballing effect. So it's not that anybody is significantly more powerful, is significantly more sustainable. People are able to take that small advantage and use it where they possibly can. And that's what makes Counter-Strike so interesting, is because there's a small change in power, and the usage of that small change in power is where it's important. In Overwatch, there's a huge difference in power. I don't think that is needed to be able to have that like impactful high team coordination style impact. I think Overwatch players are just a bit of bitches and don't like to fucking dodge damage. Like I'm a little bit overstating it there, but even so, like with my meme kind of game mode where I pulled Wrecking Ball down to a 200 health. First, Dostray is like, what the hell is this? I can't survive shit. 3 or 4 minutes into him playing, and he's destroying people with 200 health, right? Like, because he's smaller, I've given him a little more speed. So he's a lot more like a DPS, and he's doing all the same things that a regular tank would be doing because his survivability is just a little bit higher. But he just has to, you have to adjust your play. Like, you have to be more refined. You got to stand. You got to make sure that your team is standing behind you when you step out, because they're the ones that are going to protect you. That's what I'm saying with smoke grenades and flashbangs. Your team is what gives. When your entry fragger goes in, the rest of your team puts those things out and helps keep the entry fragger alive. And the time to kill and the time of those engagements is much shorter. But it works, right? It's still a healthy team play environment. Obviously, Overwatch, you want to extend that out a little bit because there is support and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think these large health pools are needed for most of the tanks, and for the survivability in general is needed. It's kind of an artificial way of extending the fight and imbalancing things a little bit. I don't know. Like, I don't have a direct point with that as much as like. I just don't think it's needed. You know what I mean? Do you see that, or does that make you just feel like...
I let you talk for a while, but I have my one rebuttal is I don't agree with that like at all.
Okay.
It's mainly because of my experience at the rank I usually play at now. People hit shots surprisingly when you actually hit like higher SR, and even in 5v5 with Gigatank health pools, you've seen it. And these things blow up instantly. I feel like if tanks get any weaker in this patch, they're just going to be completely irrelevant again, just like they were in Overwatch 1, unless you were pixel perfect with your positioning and movement. Well, I don't want to get back to that. I want to have at least some forgiveness, because that's part of tank hero identity. You want to be able to anchor a position sometimes, or sustain something, and be able to fight people without necessarily just having the resources of cooldowns. That's what makes tank so engaging, is you have to balance both using your resources appropriately, but also doing good shooter fundamentals occasionally. Like if you're playing Junker Queen is a great example of this. Your space making capabilities are only as good as your damage dealing capabilities. And that's part of what makes her so engaging. If you're going to try to balance tanks around being squishier overall, but having their cooldowns be the only way they can really make their plays, so to speak, I would be honest, that's just kind of boring. that's just going to be really boring. It's also kind of impossible to balance, because the tanks that have like higher tempo cooldowns by default are probably just going to get a lot more done naturally. I don't know. It seems like just kind of a nightmare, both to play and not really that engaging to play against either.
It would have to be rebalanced. I think you'd have to try it first, because we played with it, and like when I don't know. Yeah, like the problem is that when you say high elo stuff is different. The problem is in Counter-Strike, it's the high elos that made these strategies, right?
I'm trying to get your point, but like that's a completely different game. There's actually no difference in the heroes you're picking. It's just there's no cooldowns really. There's resources. It's just, I don't see the comparison much there.
Well, the thing is, if you Venn diagram it, okay, they're two very different circles. What I want to point out is the small area where they overlap in terms of team play and team potential. I think you can still maintain the level of sustainability. That's fine. It would be more of a game feel thing. I feel like it's along the line of them reducing the shield, the like global shield reduction, health reduction that they did a while ago, right? Like, I don't, if Reinhardt was still 2000 shield and they did a health reduction on him, yes, it weights him more towards the shield bearer, the rectangle man, as they used to just call him, because it's, we stand there with the fucking rectangle the whole time. But yeah, so that's where I have a hard time actually. Like, I'm just gonna pull myself back a little bit.
You just described right there with the issue. That's like the exact problem I have with it. Is like you're basically forcing these tanks to be like only their cooldowns, and Reinhardt will never get the opportunity. Or
that's where. That's where,
but he just doesn't have as much opportunities to just use his other parts of the kit as much.
So with the existing balance and existing like exact tool set, I agree with you. Okay, like if we shift off like if we keep everything the same and then just do the health, this is why I would never recommend it directly. That's what I'm saying. I wouldn't push this out to your actual code. but it's more of like a thought experiment, I would say, than anything else. Where that potential, yes, it would completely change up the play style, but I think you could still probably get the same level of feel and sustain if you put it into things that require skill, because I don't think health pools are skill, right? That's my biggest thing. I don't think health pools are skill. I think things that enable health pools can be skillful, but like more health is the exact same as like self health regen, right? Like it has the exact same impact, and it's completely passive in terms of your level of sustain. If you give somebody more options, like actually a Diva's defense matrix I thought was an excellent change. Remember when it was locked to 4 seconds, you pressed it and you had to use the whole fucking thing?
No, actually, I've never heard of that before.
You don't remember that? Oh, that when Diva was released.
I didn't play that far back in Overwatch. I was in like 2017 whenever I started playing.
I've basically been playing since release. So when Diva was first released, for the first year or two, okay, when you use her defense matrix, you had to use the whole thing. It locked you on and you used it. After a while, they made it so you could flicker it on and off, right? What happened is it was instant. It used to be on, off, on, off, on, off. Okay, people got so good at that they actually had to put the like quick delay in, so you can't just like turn it on and off right away. But to me, that increases levels of skill expression because your survivability comes down to reaction time and positioning. Whereas when you consider something like health pools directly, like a larger health pool just means that you can stand in one spot for longer and don't have to express anything more. So it's not the fact, like Reinhardt, if you and just again, this is more thought experiment, not necessarily balance. Reinhardt, if you put more weight into his shield, okay, that means that the Reinhardts who are really good at flicking their shield up and down and incredibly efficient get closer to the fight. And so therefore they can actually swing more, right? Removing the health pool does mean they don't have to swing, like does mean swinging more is more dangerous, but it means that the times when their shield's up has to be more impactful, right? You like, if you balance it more towards health, then Ryan can just drop his shield, face tank, and the health pool doesn't actually allow for any kind of skill expression. It's more of just like it's a passive sustain. It allows for mistakes over and over again. And this is where actually I'll point this out with sorry if I'm talking too much. You can tell me shut up. It's fine.
I do actually want to note what you've been describing so far is like this whole. I don't necessarily agree with the notion that the health pool itself isn't part of the skill expression. It is a part of the skill expression on tanks. That's something that allowed me to reach high rank on tank whenever I first started one-tricking it midway through like 2018 or something, is because if you understand that your health pool as a tank is part of your resource, it also informs how much you're allowed to get done as that hero in particular. And if a person is not respecting their own health pool as part of the resource, they usually get punished by the other tanks who are using it appropriately. That's part of the reason why I like having tanks that are at least somewhat tanky, is because most of the time they're going to be fighting each other a lot, unless you're talking about dive, in which case maybe not so much. But a lot of tank damage goes to tanks in a lot of cases, and that's what the health management is part of the skill expression, is knowing when you have to pressure enemy tank, when you need to yield to enemy tank, when you need to ignore enemy tank. All of this does feed back into how much health they have, and means that the more decisions that you have to make is tied exclusively to the health pool on that tank hero. The less health they have to work with, the less they're allowed to do in general.
I'll argue that it informs skill and expression. So the mechanic of health informs your actions on other skills that allow for skill expression, right? But the health pool itself is a passive workaround. So you know, like roguelikes, right? I played Risk of Rain, right?
I've played a lot of roguelikes in my day. I'm aware.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of roguelike, and this is also too, I can imagine, like we can run parallels with the health passive, right? A lot of roguelikes, you only have a certain amount of health, right? When you go into a game, and the like. If I consider the health pool, obviously how you spec yourself or how you set yourself up in the roguelike, how you build yourself can focus around like your health pool. It can focus around mobility. It can focus around damage. It can focus around all those types of features, right? Well, you're right. I'm actually gonna say you're absolutely right that when you're in a roguelike and you're doing a health pool stack style character, what you're doing is you're expressing your skill in terms of your knowledge, right? And so the actions that come out of that and the decisions that come out of that are all like, they are all yeah, they're all about your skill and understanding of the larger scale of the game, I guess, more to place it than anything else. But if you were to consider something, like, obviously health pools have to be considered, but if you say something like you're a one-shot character, right, whether you get damaged and you die, or you basically if you take any damage at all, then you die, or you consider that you lose, then every other action that comes out of that is like an active action that then has to be now I'm overthinking it now, because I'm like, okay, there's obviously passive abilities like Risk of Rain. You got rockets and shit that just come out of you, so that's very, it's not really
Here, I'll try to keep us on topic the whole discussion again. I got 2 more points on why I do want to keep tanks at the baseline health that they're at right now.
Yep.
I mean, they're both kind of intertwined, but they're very simple. The first one I have is, very simply, I don't like it when tanks are just super punishing to play. No one really does. That's why it's so unpopular by the end of Overwatch 1. It's just, you just die if you do like the one wrong maneuver. That's not really that fun for the tank player. It may be in theory balanced for the entire game, but really, strictly speaking, just not fun. And I don't want it to be not fun for the tank players, especially considering there are options to deal with tanks still in the game. Like, Bastion still blows them up pretty well in a lot of cases, as long as you're not blowing your turret configuration too early. Regardless, there's a whole back and forth to it. Just them being a little bit more durable than maybe you might appreciate is okay in some contexts.
Actually,
like, they don't need to be super punishing in order to be balanced.
No, I found it. Here's the fucking idea. Sorry. I'm gonna keep it straight with the roguelike analogy here. Okay? The purpose of having different styles of survivability in play allow for expression in very specific roles. I'm not saying flat tank health reductions across the board. Characters like Reinhardt, characters like possibly Junker Queen 2, those health pools are really important to the actual core fundamentals. But I'm going to take Wrecking Ball as our example. And I would actually really like to see this in action in a properly balanced game. And I hope Toastie, if you're watching, man, I'm really curious of your opinion on this, because he said it was a lot of fun. Like I say, 200 health pool Wrecking Ball actually allows him, and reduced in size, obviously, so he takes less damage, allows him to do all of the same things that a normal Wrecking Ball could do in terms of putting himself on the or like in terms of impact on the battlefield, that focuses into that specific play style, right? Expression in that. Just flat putting health pools, and at least this is where too I think like putting us in roles kind of is probably not the best way of thinking of it. It's not that all tanks should have less health. I just think that tanks don't need health, right? Not all tanks need all the health. So some characters like Ryan and Queen, that's okay, because you can run a roguelike game where you are a health pool stack style character, but other characters don't need that level of survivability. And I'm gonna defend this to the end. I think you could half Mauga's health pool and give him a little bit of knockback on his chain gun, right?
Oof.
And you would I know
I
you
had
hate
a
that.
shiver go up my spine. But Jesus.
But the thing is once you got to him, once you broke through the fact that he's pushing you back from the fight, he would die instantly. Now the question is, do people like playing that? But if you have an entire suite of tanks where some of the tanks like Reinhardt work well as damage sponges and brawly, style characters, you can express other styles of tanking without focusing on everybody needing more health. That's the issue. Like, saying as a tank role, I think is very limiting. Is a very, you know what I mean? Like, it's not a, yeah.
It sounds like we should have probably been having a more nuanced discussion about this to begin with. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm going to ask then is, was there any examples that come to mind among the tank heroes that you were thinking explicitly that maybe could use with their health pools reduced, as it were? I think my mind immediately jumped to tanks that are like lower health pools by default, Doomfist, Junker Queen, or Ramatra, that have only like 400 HP as it is, and I thought reducing those further would be a disaster. But if there's other tank heroes that come to your mind that you think maybe need to be looked at, then that's probably more worth discussing.
Yeah,
Wrecking Ball's a good example. Wrecking Ball has maybe a bit too much health. I can see that being the case. But
I'll
also
Sigma.
pretty much any Sigma is Sigma's 400. You got to be careful here. I had another point in my back pocket that I did need to say that before we get down this route. You can't have a tank hero that has less than 400 HP. And I remember exactly why I said that, and I figured it out because I just pulled up my calculator. Because if they're 375, well, I'll back up for a second. You can't go between 375 and 400 because that just looks ugly on the UI and nobody likes that. But if you're 375, that tank is now eligible to get one shot by a Widow with damage boost. And that's just not feasible as a tank hero. You getting one shot by anything as a tank hero, nah, can't happen. Not feasible. It's just not a thing. You cannot allow that to happen.
I don't know. Dostray is asking. Oh, he's asking what we're discussing. We're discussing tank pools and stuff like that. Tank health pools and stuff. So I don't know if I totally agree with that. I think you can have one shots from DPS. What I would have to consider, and this is where I don't know with the current balance, and I don't want to start a whole hero rework, right? This is the issue, where if Sigma could technically have if in theory he could have a 100% like uptime of his shield and potentially his suck, but had very like once you got past those, he was really vulnerable, then yeah, the Widowmaker thing does make it hard. Like I say, it's gonna feel bad. That's where I think the playstyle change is too extreme in a way.
What you're describing right now with the Sigma idea is it can't really happen either. Any flanker gets on his ass, like immediately he's just he's falling over. like get Tracer blinks behind him and does like one little clip of damage. He's already lost over half his health in that context. Like that's I can't.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying with like the existing way the abilities work. You're still catching me on the spot because I really have to like think about this to apply it.
This is hard. This is very hard.
It is very hard. Because what I would do, and so for example, and just as a meme on my end to try it in my game mode, I gave Sigma a smaller shield, okay, because it reduces the amount of damage that the shield takes, so it actually has a higher uptime. But I also gave him low gravity, and what that does is allows him to move around and jump over areas that normally would restrict him to one spot on the map. Right now, he has a lower health pool, and most tanks actually in this. See, Dostray is too bad. He's in here for a second. I was actually really curious more of his Wrecking Ball opinion, where like what that does. I'll say it turns the survivability of the tank more into a movement thing, and how you position yourself and how you move yourself throughout the battlefield. Because Sigma shouldn't be taking brawl damage anyways, right? And you're right.
I'm glad you brought up Sigma with mobility because something I am interested in looking at is I actually do pull from some of the experimental cards that Overwatch had during its lifespan, because I thought there were some really interesting ideas in there that weren't really given the full light of day. And one of those was in the creator experimental patches that were happening the late end of Overwatch 1, where Sigma didn't have a barrier. He just didn't have the cooldown. Didn't exist. But instead, he had a little bit more health on his own self, a reduced kinetic grasp cooldown, and while kinetic grasp was active, your movement speed was like cranked up by 40% or something.
Yeah,
that was pretty fun. I'm not gonna lie. Maybe not like that useful or viable, but it was pretty fun.
That's actually exactly where I got the same idea from. So when Sigma, for example, on mine, when Sigma, if you jump and you hold spacebar, you actually get low gravity, so you can jump significantly higher, right? The idea behind that was even though we reduce like the shield. What I wanted to reduce was the stand in one spot, throw the shield out, and just fucking stand there and just throw shots. Like to me, and actually I'm gonna have a big critique. I know we're kind of like floating off of this a little bit, but I still have a big critique about Overwatch 2 characters. Most of the Overwatch 2 characters are stand there, shoot, throw something, shoot, throw something, shoot, right? That's literally what Sigma had become, where you stand there, you shoot, throw your rock, shoot, throw your rock, right? in the same way, Reinhardt, like, it seems stupid to run this as a parallel, but Reinhardt, swing, throw a fire strike. Swing, throw a fire strike. Orisa, shoot, throw your fucking spear. Shoot, and it's all down range. Now, that means when we move it into 6v6, we get, and you actually mentioned this before, we get kind of this bias towards like a very frontline tank composition, right? If you split that up, this is where I actually have a lot of faith in people, and I think Blizzard did initially too, to find their counters within the specialties. I think if you split that up, like I mentioned with Sigma as an example, he shouldn't be taking any brawl damage in the first place, so punish him for taking that fucking brawl damage, but then increase the level of survivability for him to nuancely sneak himself into areas just to have a few seconds of an advantage.
You gotta be careful with this, as it were. Because there is counterplay already to this. Because Sigma kind of already loses pretty hard to Reinhardt and Winston. You don't see that happening in 5v5 because Reinhardt's trash. Winston's hard. But like he loses very hard to some heroes in the roster already. Yep. So be careful, right?
Which is why I gave it, like, and again, this is so hard without like a full rework of the character. That's why I gave him the jump mobility, because if Reinhardt jumps him, he just low grabs his ass out of there, and there's no like you get to reposition right away. Even to, I'll point out characters like Monkey, and like you could reduce the cooldown of his, I again, just as a thought experiment and an experiment, reduce the cooldown of his bubble, reduce the size of his bubble, right? Reduce his jump cooldown, but also reduce his health. So you increase levels of survivability in terms of his utility throughout the field, because he shouldn't really be brawling into damage anyways. You give him more personal survivability with a smaller bubble, but it also disincentivizes him just taking fucking damage, because that's like, yeah.
I mean, now we're kind of getting pretty off the rails, because you got a character like Winston, and you can't touch him. Like, Winston's not something that I would be comfortable messing with to any significant degree. That is like pinnacle design, and the game tempo should be around those numbers. If it's any higher, we have power creep. If it's any lower, somehow the game is power crept backwards or something, or Winston's favored than like, do not touch Winston. That's your like perfect Overwatch. Use this as your baseline character. In fact, that was my biggest number one for making this patch, is like, don't fuck with Winston. He's where he needs to be.
Again, these are not more like recommendations as much as they are examples to just show the mindset of where I'm thinking in terms of reducing tank health. Yeah, I think it would be too. That's the hard problem. I don't want to I wouldn't push any of this stuff to your code as much as I would just like consider the direction of the heroes, where like.
If we're talking explicitly tank health, I could be convinced that Winston maybe doesn't need 125 armor, for example. Like, maybe I could give him a little less armor, give him more health, whatever. But I don't know. I'm not seeing in the large scheme of things. I'm not seeing the benefit of it. I think we're pretty good as we are, and I want to let them see things develop again. I don't think we're yet at the point where everybody feels like the consensus is tank heroes are too OP. I don't know. I can't justify it right now. It's the only problem.
That's my that's my big kind of like before I say anything stupid, as I've already said a bunch of stupid things. But no, it just like these are not, again, we're not recommendations for like what should happen to the tanks as much as like emphasis, or even like I'm looking at the pool right now. There's a lot you could do to emphasize the character. Yeah, no, I'm not going to go into that. Really, the biggest thing right now for your code, okay, is that tanks are maybe a few percentages too powerful. I don't know what the answer to that is.
You said the same thing before I went back and scaled their damage as well. So now I'm kind of curious on exactly how far we need to go for you to feel like it's where it needs to be.
No, that helped a lot. I thought they were like 30%. They were. You have no idea how much value they were getting before this. Like, at least from my perspective viewing, like everybody, even though everybody was still having fun, I think a lot of the weaknesses were the fact that people weren't used to playing around 6v6. Like, the tank combos that I see in our games are so shitty. Okay, like they are so shitty. Nobody fucking plays together in these games. Okay, there's like very few games where I'm actually seeing. Let's say you have Reinhardt Zarya. Watch the amount of times you see a Reinhardt go in and the Zarya properly bubble him. Like it like never happens, right? Yeah. It's always some DPS because they're so used to playing up against one tank, doing a little off angle. So Zarya bubbles him off in the distance. Reinhardt starts falling back. Oh shit! Zarya steps in front of him, bubbles to block a little bit. Like it's never the, or I never see like Winston Wrecking Ball or Winston Diva land on the exact same target. I'm never seeing that. My worry is that once we start seeing that, like if people, if we had millions of players, but if people started to refine towards that, that's where that like value stacking would start to become an issue. And I don't think it's a problem. Like that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's a problem right now. I think it's actually really good right now because people are probably garbage at 2 tanks. But yeah, like really pay attention. Next time we're hosting them, just kind of watch the tanks and you'll see they're getting lots of value, but they're never working together, which is a little bit, it's very hard for me to make any like direct decisions or even like recommendations without seeing like maximum value tanks. I am hoping at some point maybe we can get like a Masters Plus game together where you get really good players that,
Oh yeah, I saw that ping a while ago, but nothing really returned to that, did it?
I think we had like 3 people respond to it or something. But Discord pings are hard and setup that like yeah, I'd have to like reach out to people. I know people that would absolutely join. I got quite a few members too that are GM in my little community that would absolutely join something like that. Just if I ask them. But yeah, we'd have to like figure that one out. I'm gonna get a few more videos out and hopefully try and grow the community a little more to see if we can get a bigger pool to try that out. But I'm very worried that once we have 2 tanks that are working together, they're like their utility alone is just gonna like steamroll. But not something to like worry about right now. I think everything's pretty healthy in terms of at least what we're balancing for. So
I hope we can get like actual games tonight going as well, because I do want to have some actual matches being played that aren't just getting crashed like every freaking match again.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure we'll be fine. We can get tons of people in anyways, right? So it's not really
I do need to take a moment to actually go get something to eat before that happens, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll be back in like an hour or so.
Sure, no worries. Yeah, I'm gonna take a little break here too, and then
good discussion, good talk.
Yeah.
We'll sleep on it, I guess. Something that comes to mind that I think I do need to look at is I'm actually not even sure how much healing Take a Breather is doing right now.
It's 300.
That's not 300.
Are you sure?
It is not 300. I guarantee you it's not 300. I thought it was. It's not. It's completely different. And I don't know if like the heal backup is somehow messing with that, or something's not getting set right, or the math isn't working out. I don't know. I have to figure that out.
We'll take a look.
What did I just win? 5 from the jump catch game. What does that even mean?
Oh, you get points, and then you can actually buy like clothing and stuff. I don't have any whatever. I don't have clothing or extra stuff for the dude, but I have if you do the cube dude, you can unlock extra hats and weapons and stuff.
Great.
So yeah. I will say the only thing I'm gonna say, Life Weaver is too powerful. I'm gonna just straight out say that.
Still, I've nerfed him like 3 times.
We're gonna have to. I don't touch it for now, but he is fucking. Low key, when one team has a Life Weaver, when one doesn't, I am like, it's like a 90% chance the Life Weaver team wins. But don't tell anybody else that, because I'm worried that people will start fucking doing it, and then
let's just start playing Life Weaver all the time.
Yeah, possible. And then because the ability to pull 2 tanks is just.
I will nerf that hero into the ground if I have to. I will do it.
Just keep an eye on it. Mm-hmm. If you see the same thing I do, if not, I could be fucking hallucinating, and I'm, maybe just, not.
I think you're right. The Life Weaver can get a lot of value done. If no one targets him, he explodes the moment people look in his direction. You have to have your pedal, you have to have your dash, and you have to have an escape. And if all 3 of those aren't checked, you die.
Yeah,
You
but
just
you
die
always
like
do.
any
But you
dive
always
hero.
do have them. But you always do have them. That's the biggest thing. Like, you literally always do. And, like, that's the problem. It's like, I'm diamond player pretty much. No, I guess I'm plat right now. Fuck you.
All right, I'm walking into Fist when I'm running your team, and you're gonna play Life Weaver, and you're gonna get rolled like every fight. I'm gonna make this happen.
But the problem is when I'm getting fucked by, like, one of the GM players, I go Life Weaver too. And
I mean, like hold on. If we're gonna talk about a recent example, that Saravasa game, you were kind of getting smoked on Life Weaver regardless. Like that was looking pretty rough. On its own.
I have a consistency performance problem. Some days I am like a fucking bronze player. Some days I have no problem against GM players. Like, I'm not even. I don't. Yeah. It's.
Woke up on the wrong side of the bed, huh? Likely story. I'm watching you.
I'll gladly be public with. I'm actually doing blood tests and stuff like that now to, like, figure out what, because some days I'm so foggy headed and some days I'm on point, and I mean this, like, I say this when I have, like, my community and I have, like, silver players. Some days I'm like, I feel like I'm god against them, and other days they just fuck me up so bad I can't even, like, and so I don't know what it is yet. It's probably like vitamin D or something like that. That's the issue, but. Well, I'm figuring that one out. But no,
okay,
that
before this
day,
turns into a vitamin D discussion, I do have to go. Like, right now,
no, go do your thing. I'm just fucking rambling. Go ahead. All right, man. Appreciate the work. I appreciate the help on. Yeah, I'll see you in a bit.